Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kia ora, Bull fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, we finally arrived, okay? After 2 grueling weeks of depression, back-to-back losses, the pessimism taking a grip on the Chargers fam, I gotta tell you, I finally got some good news for you. And no, as much as I'd like to tell you and as much as I've been hounded about it, this is not gonna be a 20-minute long video of how Sean Payton is definitely gonna be the next Chargers head coach, because he totally is. No, this instead is about climbing out of the proverbial hole, okay? Because I gotta tell you, it's been dark down there. Not much hope for the Chargers fam, especially with how much hype was at the top of the season. And even though in moments like these and in video topics like these, I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of Chargers comment fans in the chat saying, "Director, the season's over, throw in the towel." What's Sean Payton's home address so we can send gift baskets? Even though we're going to see that, I'm here to tell you this is going to be my first week in a while of unfiltered, unashamed, shameless bomb of optimism, okay? Buckle up. I'm here to make your day no matter how many comments fight me back. I mean, it's because I do see the Chargers getting ready to find themselves in a good situation. So before we do get started, guys, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. We hit a nice little pocket yesterday on one of the Thanksgiving games. Pretty nice little dub right there. Make sure to use code DIRECTOR to match your first deposit up to $100 if you want to get in on the action. Also help support the channel in that way. Thank you guys so much in advance. Before we do kick off, guys, hit us up with a like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, the small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. The Chargers at Cardinals, Week 12 game preview. Week 12? We only got a few more weeks to enjoy our Chargers. Let's go ahead. Let's root for the Bolts, okay? I know things have been kind of a bummer lately, but at the same time, I do think that things are going to turn out a little bit better than we have hoped going forward. Let's enjoy the football that we have left together. Speaking of together, where are my manners? Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in the chat. I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend with the fam. Stuff in your faces, getting ready for the Christmas transition. A lot of people don't like that. I'm one of those dudes that can't wait to put up the Christmas tree. So very excited for that. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend with the fam. All right, dudes, let's get into the injury report. I know there was a ton of questions revolving around this, more specifically Mike Williams. Spoiler alert, Mike Williams is not going to be playing this game. Re-aggravated that high ankle sprain. It looks like he's going to be out another week or 2. Hopefully, he gets reunited with Keenan Allen sooner than later. You guys want to know what's crazy? Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, I think they've only played a handful of snaps together this season, and we're going into week 12. Which is kind of depressing. Hopefully these guys get back together and have a really strong last half of the year. So let's get into this. Starting here at the top, Nasir Adderley. Not going to play, most likely. Who we're going to see in his stead? Probably a lot of JT Woods, the rookie. I'm hoping that we see a lot of flashes to give us a little more, I don't know, optimism if we do need to call on him more this season. I know that it's been a little bit of a letdown, the 3rd-round pick, but he is a 3rd-round pick, a rookie. We're hoping to see him find his groove in this game. Of course, Keenan Allen finally back after the hamstring from hell. Man, it felt like he was never going to return. Finally, we're going to probably see our first fully healthy game, full health, or I should say no snap count game of Keenan Allen. And of course, if your name's Justin Herbert, you're probably smiling ear to ear. Bryce Callahan had a bit of a groin issue, injury scare. It looks like he's back to full practice. He should be there. Of course, though, Michael Davis, the other Chargers cornerback, is listed as questionable, and that is going to be pretty important in a later segment. What are the Chargers going to do in terms of covering a team that has DeAndre Hopkins? Next up, we do have Gerald Everett. Looks like he's going to be back after a groin injury. Khalil Mack getting his veteran rest days. Kenneth Murray back to full after a bit of a sketchy neck injury last week. And then 2 full health on the offensive line with Jamari Sawyer and Trey Pipkins. And then here's your punter segment of the video. Of course, I don't think there's any player or any YouTuber out there that loves J.K. Scott more than I do. Got a little scared seeing his name on the injury report. But he looks like he'll be okay. The Chargers did work out a bunch of punters anyway, just in case. So there you go, your punter segment of the video. Next, let's wrap this thing up here with the injuries on the Arizona Cardinals side. Greg Dortch not going to be in. Zach Ertz, who I thought was going to be out indefinitely, looks like he's at least out this game. That's what we know. This is a pretty interesting one because I feel like this is going to be the first game in a while where the Chargers are not going to be facing a pretty nice tight end one, okay? What that's going to do, it's going to allow you to use Derwin James a little bit differently. You're not going to have to use him to just cover that tight end. He can be utilized in that way that we've been seeing, X position, pass rusher, linebacker, corner, wherever, probably a little bit more. more. Hopefully Zach Ertz does recover pretty soon. But yeah, for this game, Chargers are not going to have to worry about that full tight end 1 status. Max Garcia full, Tristan full. Who do you have to worry about here? DJ Humphries, offensive lineman, out. Colt McCoy kind of injured up. Rondale Moore is out. Byron Murphy, one of their starting corners, is out. And then, of course, probably the highlight of this one, Kyler Murray, after a couple of weeks off with a hamstring injury. He looks like he's back in full health. And, of course, those Chargers defenders, not the best versus scrambling quarterbacks. We're going to go over that in one of these upcoming segments as well. So with that, let's bounce into the meat and potatoes of this video. See what I did there? Thanksgiving, all that kind of stuff. I'm a lot funnier in person, I promise. Let's get into this first segment called The Bounce Back. Now, I know things have been rough the last couple of weeks, okay? 2 straight back-to-back losses, of course, versus 2 of the better teams in the NFL. Still sucks to have 2 losses back-to-back. It brings a lot of pessimism into the minds of the Bull fam. And, of course, we love our Chargers. We don't want to see that happen. But you know what? Those 2 losses, I will say, were expected. You guys remember the second half video predictions as far as the record and all that stuff I posted a couple of weeks ago? Well, things are kind of working out the way I kind of saw them, okay? I'm no, Mrs. Mandadell or whatever the names are of the fortune tellers. I'm just a dude that kind of uses his eyeballs and spectates a little bit, right? I'm just out here speculating on what I think might happen. I did think the Chargers would lose the last 2 games. Pretty tough games. We're very beat up. Just not at 100%. To me, it just felt like as much as I wanted them to win and as close as they got despite those setbacks, they were expected. But was also expected in those videos, predictions, whatever, was a bounce back. Okay? And I do feel like that bounce back should be starting this week. Sure, nothing's guaranteed. I'm not out here saying go out there and bet the house, bet the farm on the Chargers to beat the Cardinals. Nothing's, guaranteed. But I will say that if we're moving in the way that I've kind of predicted, the Bolts should have a chance at making a run here pretty soon. And it kind of starts now, okay? Kind of starts now. I think the Chargers got a good shot, a nice pocket of wins going forward in the next few weeks, okay? So with that in mind, let's get to the first topic as far as the players, Keenan Allen. His first topic called Keenan's Corner. Now, we mentioned in terms of the fallen Warriors making their return, okay? AG, the injured players finally coming their way back onto the field. We knew that those players are going to hold a significant impact for the offense and the defense. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, of course, they're going to make a huge impact on offense. Of course, we did see that last week with just Keenan Allen alone. And then Joey Bosa eventually, who I'm thinking has a shot to maybe play next week, maybe one more game after that to see him back to full health. Who knows? I'm not a doctor, but at the same time, he would have a huge impact on the defense. We knew that with the potential of their return. Well, in Keenan's return, the dude was crazy. He was an immediate boost in his first game back, right? Sure, he didn't post insane yards. He had 5 catches for, I think, 94 yards, which is, pretty respectable, especially considering I think he was on some form of a snap count. But his definition of plays are clutch, right? And that's why you have a Keenan Allen out there. You don't need him to go for, 120 yards a touchdown every single game. What you need him out there for is to keep the game alive. Give yourself the best opportunity to win. Because if you look at those 5 catches from last week, my goodness, felt like game was on the line every single time, and Keenan Allen came in clutch for first downs, et cetera, especially that huge play on 3rd and 17 for the Chargers. That was definitely a get out of your seat and cheer moment if you were a Chargers fan, because, again, the definition of his play is clutch. His second game back, however, this week, it should feel very similar to last week, adding confidence if your name is Justin Herbert, as well as boosting your odds to win this game. So sure, I'm not looking for Keenan to go over 100. He definitely could, especially versus this defense. I'm here to see him make a difference in game. Because it's not necessarily what the stats look like. It's what you do on the field in the moments that count the most. And that's why number 13 is so important to this offense. So you know what? Welcome back, 13. Welcome back, Keenan Allen, to the starting lineup. Very, very much so missed by the Chargers fans. And we're very excited to see him get to work in his maybe first game healthy in a very, very long time. Week 12, baby. It's time for the hype to finally arrive. Next up, segment called Herbert Unlocked. Okay, and if you're a Chargers fan, for the most part, I feel like we're on the same page here, right? Justin Herbert, one of the best in the NFL. There's a bit of question about that when he was hobbled up with the rib injury, maybe like throwing to the Uber drivers out there in terms of the talent he had available to him. It was pretty rough if your name was Justin Herbert. He turned into a quarterback that was, for lack of a better term, tied to the dink and dunk game, right? He's not designed to be a dink and dunk quarterback. He just didn't have anybody available to him. having Keenan back is going to be huge, right? And it was kind of started last week versus the Chiefs. I think his average, completion rate in terms of yards was somewhere like 6 yards per completion, which was really, really crazy if you're watching Justin Herbert this year versus last year. With Keenan Allen back last week, his yards were up to 12 yards per completion versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And I understand the Chiefs secondary, not the best in the NFL, but you know what? Neither is the Arizona Cardinals. But I do feel like having Keenan back opened up the field a little bit, right? And I do believe that that's going to happen again. Sure, Mike Williams won't be back this week, but even other guys like Josh Palmer, these guys have been elevated from the presence of Keenan Allen. Josh Palmer went crazy, right? Like 120 yards and a touchdown. 2 touchdowns, as a matter of fact. Pretty nuts. So the presence of a Keenan Allen helps a guy like Justin Herbert, who in my mind has been unlocked. He's finally broken his chains from being a dink and dunk quarterback, for lack of a better term, forced from being a dink and dunk quarterback. And most importantly, I do feel like Justin Herbert finally looks healthy. An injury like what we saw at the beginning of the season, it's one of those injuries where it's pretty apparent, right? You're just sitting there watching Herbert like, man, something's different, something's off. Yeah, it's because he's got a knife being jabbed in between his ribs right now, man. Anybody doing their job, even a desk jockey, man, like it would be super, super tough to focus on what you're trying to do in that much pain. It's pretty obvious now that that pain, for the most part, has surpassed, and he's starting to look like his former self. So good to see Herbert unlocked in this matchup versus the Cardinals. Speaking of the Cardinals, let's talk a little bit about their team a little bit, okay? A suspect secondary. Now, this is going to be another thing that helps out a Justin Herbert just a little bit. This team is pretty bad versus the pass. Okay, this is the team that allowed 361 yards and 4 touchdowns to guess who? Andy Dalton. Yes, sir. 400 yards, 4 touchdowns to an Andy Dalton. I think the Chargers may have a plan of attack here, okay, if the secondary is that bad. You know what? They've not really faced a lot of elite quarterbacks this season. I think the best one they faced, of course, us too, was Patrick Mahomes. And I think that was even in week 1. That was their toughest week. That man put up 400 yards and 5 touchdowns in week 1 versus the Cardinals. Absolutely insane. You know what? Outside of Mahomes, Herbert is going to be the toughest quarterback they're going to face all season long. Maybe a Tom Brady. I think they do play the Bucs a little later in the season. Either way, Justin Herbert, this is going to be one of the toughest competitions they've had in a while. And honestly, who's to say he's not going to go out there and slice and dice up this secondary? If they suffered a 361 and 4 touchdown game to Andy Dalton, who's to say that Justin Herbert doesn't get close to those Mahomes numbers of 4 touchdowns, or I should say 400 yards and 5 touchdowns? Maybe I don't see it going that far, but at the same time, you're just kind of showing what the situation is just a little bit. A suspect secondary versus a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I'll let you guys do the math and come up with conclusions for yourself. So just keep that in mind. This secondary not looking so hot. You guys remember at the top of the segment with the injuries, Byron Murphy is also going to be out this game. So that secondary, who was already looking pretty suspect, is probably going to look a little more suspect on Sunday. So just keep that in mind. That's one of the angles if you're a Chargers fan looking for the Bolts to go in there and attack that defense. They're not great versus the pass. And I think with Justin Herbert, now Keenan Allen behind him, the Chargers should have, again, continued success in bouncing back this offense. That's another part of that bounce back I wanted to talk about just a little bit, was the Chargers offense being that one big thing holding them back for, like 5 weeks? It seemed like forever that the offense was kind of boring to watch. They've been rounding a corner versus very good teams. It's going to be one of those first times where they can really flex on that, especially versus a secondary that's so suspect. Next up, can't wrap up the offense without talking about Mr. Austin Ekeler. It's called Eck on the table, okay? Now, the Cardinals' passing defense, definitely not good. The run defense, it's not bad, but it's not anything to write home about either, okay? They're not terrible, but they're more about middle of the pack, I would say, in the NFL in terms of run defense. And last week, the Chargers, I would say they did pretty good work on the ground, especially with an elevated passing attack having Keenan Allen back. I think it kind of goes hand in hand, right? Everybody says, you got to establish the run so you can pass the ball. Well, who's to say that passing the ball efficiently doesn't help the run game in some shape or form too? I truly believe that's the case. And I think that's going to help a guy like Austin Ekeler a little bit this week too. Because Eckler's the kind of guy that can really get moving when the offense is on rhythm, right? If the passing offense is healthy, I think you're going to see a little bit more space for Austin Ekeler to get free. And he's the kind of runner that needs space, right? You're not always going to find space, but when you do, Eckler's the kind of player that can take it all the way to the house. So I like that, man. I think that Austin Ekeler in the run game should be present in Week 12 versus the Cards. And I think Eckler's going to have one of those bigger games of the season on Sunday too. Right? It's not going to be, his best game in my opinion in terms of like fantasy points and all that kind of stuff. But with Isaiah Spiller being a solid guy in the mix, to, offering consistency on the ground, maybe healthy passing, attempts from Justin Herbert to Austin Eckler, I just feel like it's going to be a pretty solid day. I've even noticed a little more usage for Xander Horvath on the ground in terms of their run game too, which has been nice to see. Now, we need to see a bit more. There are some situations where we're like, why isn't the fullback on the field? It's like first and goal. It's either fourth down or whatever. Why aren't we seeing the big fullback out there? Even if his job is to block for Austin Eckler. We need to see more of that, but it's heading in the right direction. So yeah, I think Eckler, he's in for maybe 100 total yard day and possibly a score in this one. He's been definitely one of the main weapons this season. I would say the main weapon for Justin Herbert this season in scoring points and touchdowns. I think that continues on Sunday versus the Cardinals, who again, not great versus the pass, okay versus the run, but all in all, I think the offense and its rhythm should be healthy enough that Austin Eckler has himself a pretty decent day, okay? As far as the Cardinals offense, this next segment's called the number one threat. You guys see what I did there? Again, promise, funnier in person. Number one, Kyler Murray, of course, his player number, okay? Chargers are not out of the woods because, yes, their offense looks to be in a pretty good situation versus this particular defense. Well, what about our defense versus their offense? Well, there's still Kyler Murray to worry about. And he's going to be the biggest thing on their offense that I think we need to pay attention to. Sure, Murray hasn't looked like his old self, right? Some would say, I think most Cardinal fans are a bit disappointed with his 2022 season. However, he is the kind of quarterback that the Chargers in particular have an especially hard time slowing down. And of course, I'm talking about scrambling quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett was running all over us. Of course, we saw Patrick Mahomes running for some clutch first downs last week. Chargers are just very not good versus running quarterbacks, right? We're not only one of the worst run defenses in the league, but one of the worst against scrambling QBs as well. Now, I'm not anywhere near as worried about a guy like Kyler Murray as I am a Patrick Mahomes last week, okay? I'm worried, but Patrick Mahomes definitely a different situation. But it doesn't mean that Murray can't make things difficult with big runs here and there, right? We saw situations last week where it's like, we got Patrick Mahomes in a corner. It's third and forever. What's he going to do? He's running. My God, he's running that's a first down, And that's the kind of thing you're going to see with Kyler Murray a lot. Because the dude's fast, man. The dude's shifty. He's nimble. He's really everything that you want in a scrambling archetype quarterback. And, of course, the Chargers have a big problem containing dudes like that. Do we see maybe a shift in mentality defensively? Like, hey, Kenneth Murray, I understand you're, maybe struggling versus in coverage a bit this season. Maybe run defense isn't as good as we were hoping to. But you know what you can do? You're fast. Maybe we just spy Kyler Murray a lot this game. So Kenneth Murray on Kyler Murray, maybe that makes sense. I don't know. You guys do the math. But Murray does have the tendency, or I should say Murray does have a tendency, right? We have to read that with the right inflection. Murray does have a tendency that the Chargers can use to their advantage, okay? Even as, I would say, threatening as a scrambling quarterback as he is. Murray is slippery, but he's got a bad habit of scrambling right into pressure. You guys ever see one of those plays by Kyler Murray? Just kind of shifting left, right, running around in circles. Then he runs into the defender. That happens quite a lot, as a matter of fact. You know what? This guy has been sacked a mind-boggling 24 times this season. 24. And he's missed a few games. I think he's at 24 sacks, and I think 8 or 9 games, somewhere around there. That's pure insanity. Sure, we don't have Bosa, opposite Khalil Mack right now, but my goodness, we do have Khalil Mack, and he does not care. So I think the Chargers are going to have to pull out the stops to get Murray under fire, right? We got to keep him in consistent pressure, consistent heat. And I like how they've supplemented the Chargers defense, how they supplemented a Derwin James as a pass rusher in Joey Bosa's absence a lot too. And without, like I mentioned at the top of the video, without an elite tight end to worry about this week, I would expect plenty of Derwin James playing the X position, or that edge position, I should say, that hybrid position for Derwin James to get after the quarterback. So yeah, Kyler Murray, the guy that you want to pay the most attention to, maybe pay the most respect to in terms of your defense. But at the same time, that single little quirk is enough for me to say, hey, Brandon Staley, you're the analytics genius. They're the defensive genius mind, even though things really haven't panned out that way this season. And I'm sure if your name is Coach Payton, you've seen that as well. Keep this in mind. Kyler Murray will run into pressure. So try and force him into a direction where somebody's there waiting for him, all right? Next segment here, drop a nuke. Drop a nuke. No, drop a nuke. I wrote drop a nuke, I promise. One thing that we've got to keep under control this game, though, is going to be DeAndre Hopkins, okay? Which, if I'm being honest, we're not going to be doing much containing of DeAndre Hopkins. It's impossible, right? It's an immovable object meets an unstoppable force, except, the Chargers are very movable. And our defense versus the pass, again, yeah, we're not terrible, but we're not great either. And especially when you throw a premier pass catcher like Nuke Hopkins in the mix, things can get a little out of control sometimes. Do I think that Nuke's going to have a crazy game? I think he's going to have a good game. But I also think that he could be a difference maker, a lot like Keenan Allen, okay? Keenan Allen, yeah, maybe his stats aren't popping off the page, but man, does that dude keep games alive. The same can be said about DeAndre Hopkins. This is one of the best pass catchers in football. I think a lot of people may have forgotten that because of his absence, but you know what? He came back. You know who stashed him on their fantasy team? That was me. I was one of those guys. As a matter of fact, in multiple leagues, I was like, I'm holding on. Yeah, of course. DeAndre Hopkins in the 10th round, in the 11th round, of course I'm taking DeAndre Hopkins. It definitely paid off. So let's just say I've watched a lot of DeAndre Hopkins this year. He looks just like his old self. He looks fine. He looks great. He looks better than great. And we got to keep an eye on him because he could be a difference maker. One of those guys that can really muck up our plans a little bit. But what's the most concerning is that the Chargers available DBs. Who do we have to handle DeAndre Hopkins? Like I said at the top of the video, Michael Davis may not be available. Sure, I would expect maybe Asante Samuel Jr. mostly to line up against him, depending on how the Marquise Brown situation looks like. But you want to have available resources to slow down a guy like this. Right now, the Chargers' resources kind of up in the air, right? And then we've also got their other guys to worry about, the other speedy wideouts. Marquise Brown, like we talked about, and then Robbie Anderson. My goodness. Who do we got right now? It would be Asante Samuel Jr., maybe Michael Davis, Bryce Callahan, then one of the backups. Maybe just Sear Taylor. Who knows? So that's going to be a situation to monitor. We may even see more Derwin on Hopkins than I would hope. I want to see Derwin more free to get after the quarterback, play wherever the Chargers feel he's necessary. But you never know. So either way, I would expect Hopkins to have a good game. But if the Chargers can find a way to slow him down, the better. And I would guess that would be because the Bolts are finding a way to get to Kyler Murray. Either way, watch out for number 10, DeAndre Hopkins. Next segment. What O-line fears the most? Or what? Most likely. We butchered it. Now, yeah, okay. Murray has been sacked a lot, okay? But it doesn't mean that Herbert is safe either. Now, last week, the Chargers gave up a whopping 5 sacks to the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, that's a big yikes. Don't like to see that. I know there was a couple of moments that I was like, get your hands off my quarterback. I take personal offense to anyone taking down Justin Herbert. But you know what? This offensive line, they got to hold up a bit better than they did last week, right? Because if you look closely, many of Justin Herbert's mistakes, in quotations, were caused by a collapsing pocket. What do you want him to do, right? Levitate his way to a first down? If the pocket collapses, he's going to have to come up with something. And you can't always throw the ball away. Sometimes you're going to have to force it, just like that interception at the end of the game last week. That's why we need to maybe pay attention to what happens on the O-line a little bit more. Because sometimes it's Herbert. Yeah, he's not immune to mistakes. But there's a lot of times it's like, okay, what do you want him to do? Float away for a first down. It's not going to happen. And this week is especially concerning to me because they got J.J. Watt for crying out loud. But not only that, they got Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons, Marcus Golden. They got a pretty decent little pass rushing unit there. Isaiah Simmons more in coverage, but you guys catch my drift. And the Bolts, they're going to have their hands full. They definitely are. But fortunately for the Chargers, I also have to point out in terms of their own line that they've proven that they're capable this year. Just not last week. Not last week. Before facing the Chiefs, I think Herbert was the least sacked quarterback in the league, which is kind of nuts. I think he had 15 sacks leading up to Week 11 versus the Chiefs, and then they put up 5 sacks on us in one game. It's like 1/3 of all the sacks that we had all season in just one game. Nuts. But they have proven that they are capable. And I just hope that we see that line return to that form. I know that JJ isn't the same player. I still respect him. Zaven Collins is a heck of a player. Marcus Golden, Isaiah, these guys, just watch out for him. If we can keep Justin Herbert upright for the most part, we are going to see less mistakes. So we're hoping to see the offensive line have a bit of a bounce back game this week too. Last segment here before we get into the score prediction. A run D Achilles heel. Now, I could not go through this video without pointing out the obvious, the painful realization come to life by number 24, Nick Chubb, in this horrific game for the Chargers run defense. One thing we won't be able to escape is the Chargers' biggest weakness. The same weakness as last year, folks. It's Groundhog Day all over again. Let's just say that if our run defense was a Bulbasaur, it'd be like we're facing a Charizard Fire Blast every single week, right? For those who get the nerdy references and grew up in the 90s. And in this instance, we're not even a Bulbasaur. It's being too gracious. We're more like a friggin' Weedle. It's horrible. Our run defense is horrible. It's so obvious how bad we are versus the run that even teams that are by definition a pure passing team, they shake out of their tendencies to gobble us up on the ground. The Chiefs last year, who haven't had a 100-yard rusher all season long, destroyed us on the ground. Several drives where it was just handoff. You know what? We didn't do anything. We did dip about it. There was just nothing we can do. We are incapable of stopping the run. And I'm sure the Cardinals are foaming at the mouth about this because they got a running quarterback. But you know what else? They also got James Conner. And if you're a James Conner fantasy owner, I got to tell you, man, fire him up because he's going to have himself a day. Because if there's one thing you can count on, it's the Chargers' run defense folding at the worst moments. 3rd and long. Wow, first down. 4th and medium. Wow, first down. 25 yards to score. Wow, that's a score. Like, it's just the way it's going to be this season. It sucks. But there is a way to soften this issue just a little bit. And that's simply to stay ahead of your opponent. Kind of dumb, right? Of course, score more points than your opponent. You're going to win. Easy peasy. It's a little bit more than that, okay? Staying ahead incentivizes your opponent to pass more and run less, okay? They're going to have to play a little casual. Passing attack is the fastest way to get that accomplished. And if we can keep that up, if the Chargers can find a way to grab a lead, maintain a lead for the most, majority of this game, I think we'll be fine. You know what? And we're going to need that mentality for, like, the rest of the year. Because I can't see the run defense improving anytime soon. So fortunately, I do feel like in this week in particular, we're capable of that. I think the Chargers can find a way to stay ahead of the Cardinals, probably. But we're hoping that's our best shot at containing that biggest weakness on the defense, which, of course, again, is the run defense. So let's wrap this thing up. My score prediction for this week, of course, you guys remember my previous 2 predictions were losses. And, of course, that's exactly what happened. I actually wasn't too far off last week. I think I had the Chargers 34, the Chiefs... the Chiefs 34, the Chargers 30. I think we ended up losing 30-27, so we're like a score off from that. So not too bad. This week, however, again, like I said, I'm going to hit you in the face with some optimism, and you better like it. I've got the Cardinals scoring 25 points to the Chargers 30 points. Okay? I do think it's going to be a pretty fun one to watch. I think points will be scored, and in the end, I do think the Chargers are capable of taking this win. Because in the end, I think the Cardinals' poor defense is the best thing that we got going for us, right? Sure, Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, they're going to make life kind of sucky for a few quarters. But honestly, the corner that we've been waiting for the Chargers to turn on their offense, that happened. Okay? The offense is, I feel like they're back in rhythm. We just didn't notice it because it was dressed up in a nasty 2-loss poo-poo sandwich. Okay? Lots of us we're too upset about the losses to really notice how good the offense has been these past couple of weeks. They've been pretty dang good. And now we got Keenan, hopefully, for a whole full 4 quarters. In reality, the offense, it's improved a lot. And I'm excited to see them go to work versus a not great defense this week. So much that I think the Chargers, I feel like they're going to find a way to stay mostly ahead this entire game, hopefully. It wouldn't be a Chargers game, though, without a nail-biting 4th quarter. But I think they'll have just enough in the tank to keep their heads above water. And that's kind of what I'm thinking this game lays out to. And I'm not going to lie, it really does feel good to predict a Chargers win again, man. Finally. Let's just hope this team doesn't have any plans of their own to mess up these plans. And by team, I mean Joe Lombardi, okay? He'll be the one thing that flips this whole video on its head. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. So you guys in the comment section below, let me know what your score predictions are. Let me know some of your thoughts on this game. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, how the Chargers contain them. And mostly, I want to know what you guys think the Chargers do as far as the offense. I'm seeing in the future, I'm seeing like a 300-yard game for Justin Herbert. Is that too, far-fetched? I don't know. I think it's going to be a pretty good one. Because if freaking Andy Dalton can put up 361 and 4 touchdowns, who's to say that Justin Herbert doesn't put up 320, 330, and 3 to 4 touchdowns? I think it'll be a good one. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you liked what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. I swear, I'll wear the jersey next one, guys. I know some people get upset. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hope you stuff your faces with the leftovers. That's what I'm thinking about right now.